Hey, friends. Happy Saturday. Well, at least I hope it's a happy Saturday for you. So glad to be here with you guys. It is cold outside. I mean, the normal Virginia torture here is that just 3 days ago, it was 72 degrees today here, which was kind of unusual. Not unusual, it happens a lot. 72, then it was 60 yesterday. Well, it's like, I think, just above freezing now. And anyway, I got my body all warmed up and now I'm back to being cold, and Tucker and I are trying to adjust. Welcome to Seed Starting Saturday. And today is kind of a different day because I don't know about you, but here on the farm, we're kind of in between the lull of just before we're getting ready to start. We'll begin kind of a slow start to our warm season plants, and our cool season stuff is kind of just growing. So this morning's going to be kind of different. I was going to soil block and pot up my eucalyptus, but I decided not to do it. Well, it'll get done on Monday. Anyway, I've got some seedlings to show you and some drama that we're going through right now. But before I jump into all of that, I just want to welcome everybody. And particularly, we have a lot of new folks following us and subscribing. And if you don't already subscribe to my YouTube channel, I just wished you would. That way you won't miss any of our episodes. And that way you'll get alerted when all of our new podcasts get posted. And you do know that we have two podcasts, right? The original, which is Field and Garden, which is that I'm the host of, and talk about all kinds of different stuff over there, from business to flower farming to just whatever's going on here on the farm. And then we have a sister podcast that the Gardener's Workshop also sponsors, and it's called Seed Talk. And I co-host that with Lane. Lane is our seed manager and is quite an avid gardener and just has such a great love for seed starting. And she's an engineer, so she loves that deep dive information. So the Seed Talk is kind of like what we are doing with seeds on the farm, but with a kind of a twist of a deep dive. So recommend that you subscribe to our channel so you don't miss those, because Lane actually makes a beautiful slideshow to go with our podcasts. And anyway, so check it out. The one, and when I'm just sitting here, when we're recording the podcast and I'm seeing the slideshow for the first time while we're doing it, I mean, it's so fun to have somebody go into our images, of which we have literally tens of thousands of images, having Fresh Eyes go in and pick photos for whatever she needs and to see them in a whole new light. It's just really a lot of fun. So check that out. And of course, you can listen to them on your favorite podcast app, wherever you listen to podcasts. You can subscribe there also, and we just so appreciate it when you review that. So I want to start off by saying, welcoming the new folks, and to say, if you are new here, we're kind of different. I was a novice gardener that discovered flower farming back in the late 90s and launched my flower farm in 1998, and it just kind of skyrocketed from there. And then I became a speaker and a teacher and a writer, launched the business called The Gardener's Workshop, which is hosted at thegardenersworkshop.com. And you're going to find just a whole big old family of resources over there, from lots of free resources, as well as our online courses and our online garden shop. And kind of our niche is that we only sell the tools, seeds, and supplies that I use. We and it kind of annoys salespeople. It's like when your sales rep would come and visit you, they have all this new stuff they want to show you. And it's like, sorry, that's kind of our niche, and we'll add a new thing from time to time. But it's those things that we find really help me in my farming and gardening world, as well as that are useful. Many of them are multitaskers. Anyway, that's kind of what you'll find over there. And we'd appreciate it if you have a need for tools or supplies, or even my books or online courses. If you want to expand your horizons, you think of us. That's what kind of fuels all these free resources that we provide to you guys. So yesterday, if you did not know about it, we have a phone app called the Gardener's Workshop Live Shop, and I do a show on Fridays. And yesterday's show was my top 10 flowers for building bouquets. They're the ones that literally after 25 years, we are still growing them. And it's because they're like the workhorses of our farm. And so you can watch the replays of that. You just go to your phone app store, search Gardener's Workshop Live Shop, and download the app. And honestly, the app is such a great experience. I think you can probably watch a replay on Facebook also. But for the best experience, it's inside the app and it's super smooth. So check that out. So get the app, go in, and I'll show you. So isn't that cute? There's our little app right there. And it comes up. And it has many of our products in here. But what I wanted to show you is that across the top, there's these tabs. There's one of them that says the features with yesterday's date. If you hit that, it brings up all the stuff that I talked about yesterday. And here is the coolest part of our phone app. And if we could only make our website do this, y'all, something so funny. Before you're deep into business like we are, you think, I just don't know why other websites don't do X, Y, Z. We're going to make ours do that. Well, once you figure out what has to happen to have that done, oh my gosh, you realize how many gazillions of dollars, if it can even be done, and then the possible glitches that are attached to that. Anyway, in our app, if you go to a product, there is typically a little video clip that's attached to that product. And that's the video that was made by the app when I talked about that product in one of our shows. It's like totally awesome. And somebody just DM'd me yesterday and said they totally love going in there and watching the little video apps. And so the specials that were off, the special offers that were offered yesterday, Tucker's trying to talk to me, but he doesn't have much to say, that we offer are still good through Sunday mornings at 8 a.m., which would be for this week, free seed packet only shipping. That means if you go in there and just buy seeds, the shipping's on me. I pay it for you. And then there's a cap on product shipping, which is $9.95. Because like some of the products like the Soil Block and Seed Starting Soil Block Maker Kit, I believe has additional shipping on our big website because it costs more to ship it. We are capping it at $9.95. So you can find all that over there. And here's what I wanted to tell you. So those top 10 flowers that I talked about yesterday, I talked about how far in advance from the planting date I start them and how I start them. Is it in a soil block? Is it in a plug tray? And what size soil block, if that's what I use? And then do I pinch that one? And just a lot of extra 411, y'all. And that's what the phone app allows us to do. It's like think QVC with me and my products. It's that style of a show. So I invite you to check that out and look at yesterday's because that was pretty valuable. You can watch all the replays from previous weeks, but yesterday's was really good we get asked that all the time. We get phone calls to the shop, to the warehouse saying, what are her go-to flowers? And so that's what made us make the show yesterday that way. And I am going to talk just a little bit I want to show you a few seedlings. So have y'all heard about the controversy that's going on? So this year, for the first time in probably, I'm going to say at least 5 years, I started 2 trays of Lisianthus seeds. Lisianthus is a challenge, and it's a challenge because it takes so long. It takes so long to sprout, so long. It's a really slow grower. And anything that is slow and long like that, you just have a lot of opportunity to kill it. Most often we do it with overwatering, which I know I'm a, fan of that myself. So anyway, so we started these Lisianthus seeds, 2 trays Bobo started, about mid-February, mid-January. Well, they're slow as heck to sprout. And this is why we tell people, do not feel like a loser, which is what somebody told me one time. I feel like a loser. I can't start Lisianthus. Let me tell you, friends, we're all losers then, because almost all growers buy plugs, meaning they buy plants. And I've got some of those I'm going to show you. So we decided, because a lot of times really small growers and home gardeners can't get plants because they don't want to buy the volume of plants you have to buy when you buy plugs, I said, all right, we are going to start Lisianthus again so that I can advise people on, doing it right. So we started on mid-January. 1 week went by, 2 weeks went by, and it just wasn't doing anything. And I was already discouraged, right? I mean, this is the worst part about slow growers. I mean, you just feel like you're such a bad seed starter. So I took them off the seedling heat mat where I had them on cookie cooling racks, and I decided that I was going to put them in the germination chamber, which is another heating way for us to start seeds that growers do, because you can start a lot more seeds at one time. And because we had to put something else in the germination chamber. So we put them in the bottom of the germination chamber, and basically I just kind of forgot about it. I left them there. And so for the following 2 weeks, we were taking stuff in and out of the germination chamber, and the Lisianthus trays were down low, kind of out of my radar view. They were literally down below my waist level. So I just didn't look at them. So then, let's see, today's Saturday. It was Monday or Tuesday or something. I was taking the last other tray out of the germination chamber, and I was going to turn it off. And I thought, oh, shoot, look, there's the Lisianthus trays. Holy cow, the Lisianthus have sprouted. And so I took them out and put them under lights, and I took a picture of them, and I posted it on social media. I think it was Tuesday. And it didn't take long for a couple of people to very nicely chime in and say, I don't think that's Lisianthus. And it's so funny because I thought the very same thing when I saw it. And I'm going to show them to you. I first off am feeling 100% sure that it is Lisianthus, but not 99% sure it's Lisianthus. And I'm going to show them to you. And I think you seeing them in real time, they looked bigger on the screen. But the reason people thought it would, first off, I got almost 100% germination of whatever it is. We're calling it the mystery seed. But why everybody thought it wasn't Lisianthus is because the little necks were stretched. Lisianthus typically sprouts right at soil level. But my theory is that Lisianthus probably germinated, I bet at least 3 or 4 days before I noticed that it had germinated in the dark chamber. The dark chamber just made those little seedlings stretch their neck. So I'm going to show them to you. And then the other thing is yesterday, so we have 2 trays. Yesterday, Bobo and I, and everybody is now staring at these trays, right? Trying to see when are we going to know what it is. Bobo and I were staring at them yesterday. I had it pulled out, and I was misting the tops of them, and I dropped the tray and creamed about a third of one of the trays. So I brought the one tray out here that has good little seedlings in it. Y'all see how small these are? You see how tiny these little boogers are? And I want to just pinch one of, let me see if I can turn. I'm going to try not to spill these like actually on my computer. See how tiny they are? And these little guys right here, and right here, we have looked at them, their leaves, those first newborn leaves that they get under a microscope, basically, actually a high-powered magnifying glass, and it looks like Lisianthus leaves. So when people saw this, and interestingly enough, I have snapdragons that were started, just like 2 weeks ago as an experiment, that were growing in a tray right next to this, and they're like giants compared to these, just meaning they sprout and grow much bigger, much quicker. So the controversy is that, are these Lisianthus? Now everybody is waiting in earnest to find out. And so the other thing I wanted to say is you can see a little funky stuff starting to grow on a couple of my blocks here. See, there's a little funky stuff right there. And, the moral to the story is, now there's more and more leaves, y'all. I'm pretty sure these are Lisianthus. And it's really late to start Lisianthus, by the way. This is 100% an experiment. This is not something I'm dependent on a crop. It is really easy to grow funky stuff on soil blocks when you have super slow growers and they just don't have that aggressive root system, right, to absorb the water and dry the blocks out overnight. And so what I want to say, because, we're seeing a lot and hearing a lot from people, is typically, in my experience, mold and or algae, which I'm not a scientist, I can't tell you which is which, or I've never done a deep dive on that. And I've grown them all, has never seemed to affect my seedlings. What affects our seedlings is what grows the mold and the algae, over watering. And that's what creates. So this is one that I often get. I don't know if I can, since this is an experiment, y'all, I'm going to pick one up so I can show you closer. I didn't really water these this morning yet. So can you see the top of that? That is the top of the block. And my soil blocking mix has no perlite, no vermiculite, which can give that appearance of what these little tan spots, that's funk growing. And it typically grows at the end for me, in my trays, my grow room has a slanted floor because it has a floor drain in the middle. And so my racks are a little tilted. So when I water, depending on which way the rack goes, the water can always runs to the back or the front of the tray. And that's where the funky stuff grows, because that's where the residual amount of water grows. So what I want to say, there's a lot more of these sprouted, y'all, than I thought, that are getting their leaves. And I am pretty certain that they're Lisianthus. But it's the overwatering that causes problems with your plants. It's not the funky stuff is a symptom of the overwatering. And I do have to say that watering, for me, even though I know a lot of people are challenged to figure out watering with soil blocking, I think in conventional, like plug trays, that was the challenge for me. There was so much soil, keeping the soil, especially if you were trying to start a seed on the top, keeping that soil evenly moist. And then because it's in a container, it doesn't dry out very quickly. My secret to success with soil blocking is I create my environment that when I water, always in the morning, usually very early in the morning. I'm late today because I've been writing all morning. Water in the morning, and then all day long, those roots, not only are the lights on and the heat, the room is warmer because of the sunlight heating the room up, they absorb water and they go through the day. And then when they get to nighttime, if I walked out here in the evening, I could actually convince myself to water. They're not dry, but they're getting dry. And that's exactly what you want. You want them to be dry as they go into night. And the next morning they're dry. You water them, they get wet, and they repeat that cycle. That cycle creates oxygen in the roots. The roots need as much oxygen as it does water, nutrients, and all the other things you think it needs. And it's that constant moisture. So just like Lane and I, it's not out yet, I don't think, I just did a podcast and we talked about hardening off. And, we talked about that. I think that I spent a lot of time way back when I first started flower farming to create an environment outside on my carport that I could just take my trays out and put them down and not have to worry about them. They're protected from what they need to be protected from. So I didn't have to do that in and out business, right? Well, I feel the same way about my grow space. It is a pain in the neck at first to try to create your grow space, whether that's in a spare bedroom, a closet, your workshop. It has to be heated and air conditioned in my experience for the easiest. It has to be. And taking the time to create that environment that when you water, in the morning. It gets warm enough during the day that the blocks are growing. Vegetative growth only happens with warmth, y'all. And when that's happening and the roots grow throughout, that's what helps them to absorb water. But when you start these slow growers, and now let's look at the other slow grower that I have, which really has some funky stuff growing on, is eucalyptus. And this is, I have not watered these yet again. I'm going to pull this off. And it looks like there's 2 seeds. I'm actually going to pluck that out. So this is eucalyptus that is 4 weeks old. And it's ready to be bumped up. But do you see that it only has, that it does have 2 seedlings in there. So I'm actually going to pull one out. Goner. And so now it's just that one little guy. But you can see the residue of funky stuff on the top. I mean, it just happens. And again, I don't see that it affects my plants. And there's a couple in here that have 2. I just love messing with seedlings. Oh, look at the little roots on this one. I'm going to pluck this. See that little root? But I'm pulling this one out. No, you can't save it. All right, he's a goner. So there you go. So these will be potted up into the 2-inch blocks to go on to grow into a beautiful little transplant. But again, because these are not aggressive growers, it is really easy to grow funky stuff on them. And so eucalyptus is very much like Lisianthus, 12 to 16 weeks to get a plantable transplant to go outside. And I think I showed you guys this a couple last week, maybe, my peas and stuff that I had sprouted. I want to just show you. So here's what's happening here on the farm. So we have a ton of transplants, cool season hardy annuals, ready to go, cool flowers, right? To go to the garden for our very early spring planting. Valentine's Day to March 1st is our optimal window. We push the envelope all the time, but it's optimal. And we have places ready and waiting for them to go to. But because the temperature dipped last night down, it was supposed to go down to 30, which would kind of be all right. But last night was the first cold night, and we have no more cold nights for the next 2 weeks. So Bobo and I decided on Thursday, she would have planted many of these on Thursdays, including what I'm getting ready to show you. But we decided, why put these out to get snapped really cold when we can just wait till Monday and plant everything and they'll just have smooth sailing. So most of everything will be planted next Monday and Thursday. And so, yesterday afternoon, after Suzanne and I finished the show, the Gardener's Workshop Live Shop show in the app, she and I sat down, y'all. We are working on, we are purchasing a big piece of equipment to package a product that you all love to buy from us, that will just revolutionize how we're doing it. But it's a big investment for me as a business. And it has a lot of, of course, as always, it's a machine that's not made to do what we need it to. It's not made to do what we're going to use it for. So we have to figure out some stuff. So Suzanne and I sat here for 2 hours yesterday afternoon working on that after the show. And then she helped me bring all the cool flowers that have been sitting out on the carport for probably about 1 to 2 weeks. And my whole building is now full of transplants everywhere. And I'm going to take them out this afternoon. I'm actually doing I call it, you know how I said I'm transitioning from cool season to warm season? Well, the plant room is almost empty. And you know what that means? Bubble bath time for Tucker. Because I have a floor drain in there and I have hot and cold water, right? So I can bathe him in the floor in there because everything gets covered in golden retriever hair. So I'm going to be doing that this afternoon, but I will be carrying all these transplants back out. So can't even remember if I showed you all these last week. So these are bush peas. These are our vegetable peas, right? And so these will get planted out in the garden this week. I put 2 peas in each block. Look at those roots, y'all. See, if this has been in a container, this would be all wound around and you would have to pull it apart, which is the right thing to do to plant it. And that does create a little transplant shock. We just lay these out in the hole when we go to plant them, and they literally just hit the ground running. Because these have been sitting outside, that is why these are still so nice and short and cool in cool conditions. That's why we grow our sweet peas outside now, flowering plants. The cool weather keeps them short and stocky. I just can't tell you how healthy and beautiful these sweet peas are. And then I'm going to just show you my Lisianthus plugs here that I just got. And these came from Farmer Bailey, who's a good friend. And what's great about Farmer Bailey is that they offer smaller quantities, minimums. So you don't, I mean, back when we were in high production, I mean, we planted 8,000 Lisianthus, so we could order them from anywhere we wanted. But Farmer Bailey, who is a flower farmer, if you're not familiar, it's Farmer Bailey Plugs is his website. You have to register as a business to have access. But these are the Lisianthus plugs that we just got. How beautiful are these? It'll be 12 to 16 weeks to get this. That's why we buy plugs, because you just saw my Lisianthuses, right? They'll take them forever. So it's going to be really a lot of fun to follow along with these Lisianthus seeds that we've started, because what we're really trying to do is to make it possible for anybody to start it. And so there you go. All right. So let me just scroll back here and see what questions we might have. Good morning, everyone. Oh, we have another Alaskan friend on here. Hello, Aaron. Our good friend Wanda, who is an Alaskan peony grower, which is Fox Hollow peonies, is up that neck of the woods. And you know that we ship to the to the United States, all 50 states now. That means you, Alaska, and Hawaii. So you can shop our phone app. All right. And, I just want to say this, one more thing about that, since I talked about the phone app. Our phone app and our big website are two totally separate entities. I know it's very confusing, y'all. It's confusing for our staff. They do not communicate at all. It's not possible. So they have stock on each. So if something goes out of stock on the phone app, if you sign up for the notification, which just means you'll get an email I guess some kind of notification on your phone, actually. I don't think it's an email that says, hey, it's back in stock. So don't be afraid to do that if you want, because what often happens is when we sell out of something, whoever at the staff at the warehouse notices that, they'll bring more stock over from the website. So you'll find things on our website that you will not find on the phone app, and you'll find things on the phone app that are not on the website. So there is, y'all, wait a minute, I got to get this. I have dirt all over my keyboard. So anyway, just wanted to tell you that. So let's see what everybody is talking about here this morning. So let's see what Charlotte has to say. I noticed my straw flower seedlings look a little brown, have on heat mat and lightly covered. Could this be too hot? When you say your seeds look a little brown, you don't mean you have plants yet. So straw flowers I have found to be one of those needy seedlings, meaning old seed does not germinate. And this is something, we have a whole new policy now that we've started this past year where we don't buy as much bulk seed as we used to. We buy it fresh from a very reliable source, knowing that it's viable when we get it, to constantly keep refreshing our seed. So Charlotte, I don't know about too hot. I mean, it's a cool flower. I put them on a cookie cooling rack, right? All the cool flowers do. But if your seed is more than a year old, I would definitely replenish your seed and try again. And I cannot remember, honestly. Wait a minute. I have a cool flower book right here. Y'all, do not try to memorize anything you can look up. And straw flowers are in cool flowers, and let's see what it says about covering it or not. Straw flowers do not cover. So that means they need light to germinate. But in the last year, we have definitely found that it's just like larkspur. Larkspur is another seed that it's like they go from 100% viable, and we're not sure what day it is, whether it's day 1 year, days 12, 13 months, 15 months, 8 months. We just constantly buy fresh seeds. So that's what I would do, Charlotte. Good morning. New flower farmer here, starting as a trial grower this year to see how I do and what I can grow in my garden. Ordered my block kit from the Gardener's Workshop and can't wait to try it out. Oh, Ingrid, good for you. And so, Ingrid, this is what I say to people that think they might want to be a flower farmer or start a business. That's what everybody needs to remember. They say, oh, I'm going to become a flower farmer because they're focusing on the glamorous part of it. Well, let me just tell you, there is glam, but it's about this much of a job. And it is wonderful. And it is not super hard, but it is certainly not easy, and it is a lot of work. But while you're practicing, what I recommend to people is to say, all right, I'm not sure I want to start a business. I would set a goal in my mind and do like, all right, I am going to donate 10 bouquets a week. You don't have to tell whatever organization we got enough teachers, policemen, and firemen out there that they could use a bouquet, right? We've dropped them off at the police department. We've taken them to nursing homes. But you haven't got to tell anybody that's what you're doing. But it's your first test as a business owner is to say, all right, I'm going to produce 5 bouquets a week or 10 bouquets a week. You're going to harvest on a schedule. You're going to make those bouquets and you're going to do it. And that is a good, put your toe in the water. But just growing flowers and not kind of like testing the waters of, all right, can I keep weed prevention under control? Do I harvest? Can I condition them? Do they last? Are they great quality? Can I put together a little mixed bouquet? You know what I mean? So that's what I would recommend to you, and do it. You could, and we frankly don't repetitively go to the same place. We try to spread the love around. Very few places are not incredibly happy to see you walk in with 5, 10, or we actually took like 50 bouquets to the police department of sunflowers last year and just walked in and said, every officer, can take one home to their honey, people are pretty happy. And to make it super simple, pick up your free buckets from, your local floral department in a supermarket or anywhere that sells flowers. Just whenever you're in there as a customer, have a cart with stuff in it so they know you're a customer, and say, hey, what do y'all do with your old buckets? I'm going to do a giving program. I need like some buckets. Because let me just tell you what the problem is. You go in with the buckets and say, I don't need the bucket back, because that's a pain in the neck for the place and for you. And if it works out that they give it back to you, fine, but don't make that a requirement. Anyway, or you can get something for $1 at the dollar store, or $1.25 or whatever that is. So that would be my recommendation there, Ingrid, to really, really give a try, right? So his Tambra says, I love the app. I use it more than the website. I love all the videos it gives me at a glance of what the potential is in my garden, helps me make decisions. Oh, well, thank you, Tamara. That's really good to hear. So she's talking about, you can go to any product in there and there's a little video icon at the bottom. You can watch that clip that I was talking about earlier. I am new and very small. I'm going to grow my first cut flower garden to bless my family, friends, and neighbors with bouquets. I hope to make it with flowers. Still on the fence about soil blocking. Well, let me just tell you so I would definitely watch the show yesterday, because that's exactly who I was talking to, was home gardeners and small budding growers. I told bigger growers what to do, but my recommendation of growing those specific flowers that I talked about yesterday was really to give diversity. And you have to check out soil. I'll let somebody on here chime on about soil blocking. There is nothing like soil blocking. It's super space savvy. I went from being a so-so, barely good seed starter in conventional ways to an overnight success. And it just grows quicker, healthy transplants. So will let you figure that part out. But I would definitely listen to the show yesterday inside the app because I talked about that. Oh, and Lisa says that her first round of plants are sprouting. Y'all, there's nothing like birthing baby plants. Nothing like it. Brooke, love the green soul blocking trays. Have you ever offered or even seen half-size trays? I would love that too. Brooke, we are always on the lookout for that. We actually import these trays from England, believe it or not. They're super heavy duty, just like the cafeteria trays are, but we're always looking for smaller sizes. So you can believe that you all will be the first to know if that ever comes about. And saying that, if you want to be in the know, be sure that you sign up for the Gardener's Workshop newsletter that comes out twice, I think, each week now. We've split it up. It was a little big. It got to be really, really long. So now we're doing two really simple versions, and people really seem to like it better. It's usually mostly how-tos and resource-based, but you want to sign up for the news, because when we get a new product, that is where you are going to learn about that. And I will just say this, but I do not have details. If we are going to have an open farm here, we have people that come from all over the country when this happens. It usually would normally happen midsummer. The newsletter is where that will be announced. And so I would say you want to be on the newsletter. I want to grow straw flowers for sale. Is there really a difference between these two variety mixes? The only way that you are going to, first off, there is not much of a variety of straw flowers out there. And you would have to grow them to see sometimes the bloom size can be different, but I find the colors to be the same. So that is another one of those. What is your conditions? We also succession plant straw flowers. They're a huge in demand flower, fresh and dried, as well as an incredible bouquet ingredient. So I would say to you, I would grow, but I mean, that's what I always do. If there's ever a choice, I did that with Bupleurum. Whenever there's a couple of different varieties that look similar, sometimes it's their growing habit, their height. There's always something different, but it doesn't always just show in the flower. So that would be what my deal would be. So let's see what Dana's saying. I have 3,200 Lisianthus and 200 cell trays. Oh my gosh. And 4,000 in 3/4-inch blocks. They are doing great. Both ways of starting succeed. And y'all, you know what that means? When you have your seed starting set up, I don't want to say right, in tune with what you're starting, it's like it doesn't really matter the way that you start. Do you know what I mean? So good for you, Dana. I'm so proud of you. That is awesome. And here's another one. Started my Lizzies on December 31st, doing great. Have to baby them though. Hope to plant out by mid-March under Ag 19. So, Lisianthus is a cool flower. It's a cool season hardy annual. It is winter hardy in my zone, but I have not found. We did a big test last year where we planted in the fall. Then we planted the same exact varieties from same plug supplier, planted in very early spring, literally grew them bed by bed. And the fall planted ones and the very early spring both got as big and were as productive. And in fact, we lost some of the fall planting one, not to cold, but to wet feet, which is what Lizzies are so sensitive to. So good for you. I can't wait to hear more about that, Gina. My Lizzie looks just like that. So maybe it's not just me. This is my second year starting Lizzie. My first year, I got 30% germination. This year, it's 50%. I'm happy with those. I love learning to overcome challenges. First year, Lizzie, overwintered education. I go 2 growing seasons out of my first starting Lizzie. Huh. So y'all, you just never know until you try stuff. And I'll tell you another tip about struggling to start something or doing something challenging. For me, my primary focus from the day I started this in 1998 was to build a business. not to prove that I could actually overcome many of the little challenges that I could easily pass off to someone else. So Lizzie Anthus was one of them. And I'll tell you what liberated me 2 years ago when Jenny Love was here recording her course, Farmer Florist School. She said to me, Lisa, I can't even believe you still start eucalyptus from seed. I buy plugs. I mean, it's like when you're running a functioning big flower farm, those little hiccups that can just really stress you because you really need the crops, but there's a lot of cuddling that's needed. It is just so much easier and more economical to buy plugs. So you have to remember that. But you know what? If that's not your situation and you love that challenge, I have a couple of engineer friends like Lane. They just love the challenge of being successful doing stuff. But that's not me. I just want the plants. That's the only reason I'm starting them, right? To have the crop to plant in my garden. All right. So let's see what this is. Shelby, we got 3 more minutes. When seeds are surface sown, do you need to keep the blocks wet until they germinate, like water multiple times a day, or is it okay if they dry out once a day, like typical soil blocks watering? What a good question, Shelby. So that's when I use the wide weave. I've got some right here. Wide weave burlap. And so the reason I say wide weave, see how big these holes are? And that's actually 2 layers. We lay wide weave burlap on top of our soil blocks. And that allows air circulation, but yet retains moisture. The same reason why they put that on lawns sometimes. You'll see instead of them using straw, they'll use biodegradable type of burlap. So we sow our seeds, and the majority of the seeds that I sow are surface sown. We sow them on the surface. Water, I mean, those blocks are moist, right, when we make them. Cover them with burlap, and each morning we take the burlap off, do our watering chores, mist if I feel like, it needs to be misted if the surface is really dry. When our room is getting really hot during the summertime, oftentimes I'll mist the surface of the germinating blocks, sometimes even with a mixture of seaweed fish in a spray bottle, but I don't do that very often. Only because it stinks to high heavens. I mean, holy cow, stinks the whole building up, and it lingers. Do not do it in your house. Your family will move you out. They'll kick you to the curb. But laying the burlap on the blocks retains that moisture, but it allows air. When I learned to soil block from Elliot Coleman back in 1997, one of his tips was that he doesn't use domes or plastic because, not that it's bad, but it is just very easy to encourage fungus, like dampening off, those types of diseases because it's so moist. And because I am the kind of seed starter, I am not a helicopter seed starter, y'all. I go in my grow room in the morning, take care of business in there, and then I'm out of there till the next morning. When you're growing with domes and trapping moisture, you have to keep more of an eye. It just depends on your environment. So that's why I never use those. The burlap is a happy medium, right? It allows air, but it also retains moisture. So Katie is talking about that she uses something in microgreen production, talking about the mold on their blocks. But again, the reason there's mold on the blocks is because they're being kept moist all the time. So it's really a correction of your watering habits that fixes that. But I don't know about using, obviously, if you're using it for food production, then that sounds pretty safe. But because I see all kinds of remedies out there on social media, but the bottom line is to fix the watering problem along with the air temperature, and that typically resolves it or prevents it from ever happening, in my experience. But whatever is easier for people to do. All right, so friends, sorry, it's 11:45, so I am going to sign off here. I want to remind everybody that you can Watch all the replays. I totally appreciate it when you give us a thumbs up on the show. Share it with people if you'd like, especially if you're over on Facebook, to like and share it. But also to remember that if you subscribe, that just helps me so much. All of this together just helps YouTube and Google and everybody just show us to more people, which is the driving force behind, is to reach more people. And that's kind of what our goal is. And we just love helping other people grow flowers, regardless of what level they're at, beginner, novice, seasoned grower, and whatever you want to do. We'd love to help you do that. And remember that inside the app, we have free seed only shipping orders, and that's just inside the app. That's not available on the website. And yesterday I talked about the 10 flowers that I use for building bouquets, and I gave you the 411, how far in advance to start them, what to start them in, and do I pinch them, and just talking about making bouquets a little bit, and did a little soil blocking. So friends, until we meet again, ciao.